This episode of Undercommon Taste is sponsored by...
Are you looking for a D&D podcast with a dark side? Something more like Game of Thrones and less like Monty Python? Tale of the Manticore is part dark fantasy audio drama, part solo D&D RPG. There's no plot armor here. The dice make all the important decisions. Join me as I resurrect the excitement, wonder, and emotion of old school D&D. Made for a mature audience, Tale of the Manticore is both a fiction and a game. It's the story where chaos rolls.
Hello and welcome to a little bit behind schedule Undercommon Taste. I am Ian Woodworth. I'm joined by my co-host James Daly, and today we have a wonderful and very patient guest as we work out our technical issues, John from the podcast Tale of the Manticore. John, welcome to Undercommon Taste.
Thanks, Ian. Thanks, James.
Yes,
Great
thank you for joining us. Yeah.
So let's go ahead and start off. Tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do. Tell us a little bit about your podcast.
Sure. So my name's John. I'm a Canadian living in Toronto, and I'm a high school teacher by day and a podcaster by night and a weekend, I guess. And about little less than 2 years ago, I started Tale of the Manticore, which is a kind of an experiment in fiction, where it's like half audio drama and half actual play D&D game. And just to make it even more complicated, it's also a solo game. So, but basically, it's kind of the intersection between a game and an audio drama. And there's not too much out there that's like that. There's maybe 3 or 4 other shows that are in the same kind of camp. But most people either would do like a straight up audio drama or a straight up AP, and I'm kind of in the middle. It's a difficult thing to imagine unless you get a sample of it. So everyone go listen to my show.
Great plug. No, I love audio dramas. So like when I was in school, I had a set bedtime, and obviously, lights out, TV out, but the radio was still allowed. So I just have the radio up, and then so I'd listen to. Generally, it was AM radio because if I listened to rock, it'd be too loud and keep me awake. So I'd listen to a drone of voices. And then they had the old audio dramas, particularly like The Shadow would come on generally about 9:30.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was always a lot of fun. And
sure.
then I remember I used to have on cassette, it was the old War of the Worlds audio cassette tape with that drama. So
The classic.
Yeah, just audio dramas. I've got a soft spot in my heart for them.
Yeah, I had heard of your podcast in a couple of places. I think it was initially an ad on possibly How Not to DM.
Maybe.
But when you approached us in December asking for an ad swap, and I was like, well, I have to listen to it before I agree to an ad swap.
That's fair
and
enough.
so the next day I was 14 episodes in.
Wow.
I was like, yeah, I think we can do this. Right. And I think I caught up at around episode 62, 63.
Wow.
So now I get that.
Thank you for listening.
I get that itch. Itch. It's like, I gotta wait 2 more weeks.
I need more.
But this week was a release week, and boy, that was a humdinger of an episto
knockdown, drag out. Yeah. And there were some goofs in there. I don't want to spoil it because a lot of people aren't up to speed with the show,
right.
But to not spoil anything, basically I made a mistake as a player, and then as the DM as well, I kind of punished my player self for having made that mistake.
As every good DM should.
Yeah.
This is why you read your spells.
That's right.
That's right.
All right. So, one of the questions I had specifically pertaining to Tale of the Manticore is, the story that you've gone through in this season has been very dwarf centric.
Yeah.
Was that planned, or was that a happy accident that came out from the way that the story just happened to progress?
It was an accident. Yeah, I'll say it's a happy accident at this point. Although, yeah. So, it's funny. Dwarf is not even like a race or class. If you go all the way back to the old school, that's not even something that I would typically go for. It's not my favorite thing in Lord of the Rings. It's not my favorite part. But it really is just where the kind of the dice dictated the story had to go, and so that's where it went. And once there was like a small investment in that aspect of the story, it just made sense to stay there and continue following this story. And so Ben from Lawful Great Adventures says that I'm on a mission to make every podcaster in the RPG sphere and turn them into the voice of a dwarf on my show. And that's not entirely untrue. I think there have been about 30.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, my personal character, the one that I first really played and the one that I've played the most, actually is a dwarf cleric.
Uh-huh.
He's a cleric of Tyr, and his name is Oscar Stoneburner. And
that's good.
And we call
that's a Tale of the Manticore kind of last name right
yeah.
there.
and we call him Short Angry Godman because he has a charisma of 6.
Uh-huh.
He's just this little.
Love it.
He's just this 4'3" bundle of piss and vinegar. It's great. I have so much fun with him.
Love it. Love it.
With Tale of the Manticore, you are using the BX rule set, correct?
Yeah.
Why did you decide to go with the BX set as opposed to a more contemporary like 5e or Pathfinder 2e or one of the OSR hacks like White Hack?
Yeah, it's a great question. First of all, I haven't played BX since I was like 13 or 14 years old. I graduated on to first edition and then second edition, and then actually I stopped playing for 25 years. 25 years, maybe even a bit more. And so I never went through like third edition or the much maligned fourth edition. I don't know if rightfully so or not rightfully so. And fifth edition, I've been saying I want to try it at a live table because I feel like online probably wouldn't do it justice. But because of the pandemic, I still haven't ever played fifth edition. So the reason I didn't go with fifth edition is because I've never played it. And the reason I didn't go with, like it's a simple enough system, and I think it would work fairly well for what I'm doing. It might be a little crunchy. I mean, it's not crunchy compared to the third edition, but it might be a little crunchy for my show. But like first or second edition, it's just too complicated. There's too many rules, and so I picked BX because I know it like the back of my hand. And I knew I wouldn't have to look stuff up. It's like second nature for me. And I knew it was fast. And so, the medium is the message, right? Like I wanted something fast, extremely rules light, combat that went by like quickly. Because that's one of the biggest problems, I think, with a typical AP is combat can tend to really drag. And so I just wanted something that was like fast and lethal, but fun. And so that's why I went with BX. It's not like there's a schism between old school and new school. I don't care about any of that stuff. Some of the sort of trappings of new school they're not my taste, but I don't have a problem with it. But yeah, I just went with BX because it was the most sort of efficient system for a podcast where I didn't want to be spending a lot of time talking about rules. Some, but not a lot. I want to keep my episodes short too, like 30 minutes. So, from what I understand, in 5e combats can easily go more than 30 minutes, like quite easily.
Yeah.
But with BX, they're quick. My longest combat was probably like 9 rounds worth, which translates to about 20 minutes, and that's like the longest one.
No, that makes sense. And you bring up some good points. I mean, if you're going to do something, if you're going to build with a game, there is a lot to pick from. I mean, again, we've got 5 editions, we've got 5.5 or 6 or whatever they're going to call it coming up. You've got Pathfinder, you've got a bunch of the, a bajillion
Savage
homebrews.
Worlds, all kinds.
Right.
Yeah.
Use what you're comfortable with. There's no reason saying you can't play a 3rd edition, a 1st edition, a 2nd edition, 4th edition if you're weird, but okay, 4th edition, fine.
Yeah.
Fine.
There it is.
But if you're comfortable with those and you or everyone at the table are good with that, run with it. Again, games are supposed to be fun. Rules lawyering is a rule thing. I mean, yeah, that happens in most tables. I'm pretty sure you don't rules lawyer yourself. That'd be a really interesting debate.
I'm min-maxing, but the other half of me is kind of upset about it. Hey, man, just get to character.
Yeah, exactly. No, and that is something that those looking with 5e you were talking about, not knowing. 5e is definitely a lot less crunchy than some of the older versions, and definitely leads itself to a lot more RP, which is a little refreshing at times. Sometimes you want that good crunch, but definitely a lot more RP opportunities in 5th.
I'm totally looking forward to playing 5th, and I could switch the show to 5th if I felt that it was a good fit, and in it I'd have to really learn it through play, not just reading the books. I know that I'm probably alienating a good solid chunk of audience that would be like, BX, yeah, sorry, I'm just not interested at all. But yeah, from my point of view, any of the system, just like you said, any system is going to work. They're all good. Maybe not 4th, but they're all good. It's just the one that's going to work best for your medium. So for audio medium, I really like the BX. I suspect 5th would be good too. It's just I don't know it well enough.
Yeah, and I mean, personally, as a DM, as a podcaster, as someone who enjoys the game, I would suggest everyone go and at least look at the older editions. You might not necessarily have to sit down and run a campaign or play a campaign, but get a feel for how that goes, because it is a lot to see how the game has changed and evolved over the years. And there are a lot of things that they have done right. There's a lot of things that they kind of scrubbed and they threw back in the past, and rightly so. But you kind of get a better feel for what the game is and how the game's supposed to be, and a better sense of not belonging, but a whole system-wide feel for the game by going back and looking at the past.
And I think, having listened to the show, I personally think that the BX rules, the way that you implement them, do work a little bit better than 5th edition would, because there are fewer things that you can do in a round in BX. So that keeps it snappy, that keeps it going quick, and you're not running any of these combats that are like 10, 15 individuals. They're all fairly small. You got the party, and usually I think the most they've ever fought at one time was like 4 or 5, maybe.
Yeah, and that became quite a lot to juggle.
Right.
And so you're absolutely right. For a game, it's whatever. I would throw whatever at a party. But for the show, I find that it works best if it's like one tough baddie versus the party, or maybe a couple. But once I start getting into like 5, 6 adversaries, it becomes like you have to mentally keep track of this stuff if you're the listener. Like for me, I've got it on paper, but the listener doesn't have it on paper.
Yeah, that's a lot for theater of the mind.
Yeah, exactly. I really have to think like, can your average listener who's maybe driving and somewhat distracted or doing the laundry or whatever people do, can they like follow this? Like that's important to me, because if they can't, then well, what am I doing if they can't even follow it? Yeah.
And I remember, I think the biggest fight you've had was the one in the bottom of the mines. And I'll leave it. I'll leave it at that because I don't want to spoil anything.
Yes.
But you had like 20 dwarves on one side, and so you ended up breaking them up into groups and then rolling,
squads.
Doing it as squads. And I felt that worked really well, because it gave you the same feel, but without actually what's the term I'm going for? Without the need to actually roll 20 times.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. I could have done that off mic and then come back and said, okay, I've been off the mic and now I'm back and here's what I rolled. But to be honest, I kind of set up that encounter, and I'll do this all the time, just to kind of challenge myself. Can I make this work? And also just so that it's like a different style of fight. I don't think I always do this, but I try and make every fight to be somehow different or unique. Like there's a tactical situation that's different, a number situation. I try not to repeat, a monster. So I wouldn't be like, okay, you're fighting goblins. And then the next episode, more goblins. And then the next one, now it's goblins on a bridge. I'll try and like change it up just so that there's like constant newness. I think a lot of DMs will do that.
Yeah.
In a game, again, I would totally repeat things. But in a podcast, I want to keep it as fresh as possible.
Now, see, I think you have a particular advantage where you are a high school teacher, and so therefore you have an idea of what's going to grab and maintain the average attention span. I mean, either be it a student or be it an adult in a car or something like that. Because I mean, about that time, especially if as an adult, if you're multitasking, your attention span is going to be shorter. So you know what that hook's going to be. You kind of have an idea of when that attention span is going to start fraying or when you're starting to overload things.
Yeah, that's a good point. I do try and like change up the vibe of the show. So kind of the way the show works for people that haven't heard it is that most of the time I'm narrating a story that is the game that I've played or am concurrently playing. And every now and then I'll just put on like a DM hat and then we'll go like there'll be a different audio to kind of signal that that's going to happen. Then I'll talk as the DM and then I'll come back to the story and then it's more like a limited omniscient viewpoint of the action. And anyway, so I try and change up the perspective every 5 or 6 minutes so that you're never listening to one mode of storytelling for very long.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
It does. What it kind of reminds me of, a little bit cabaret, and there's other types of theater they do, where it's like the 1 or 2 person shows. And so you'll have the spotlight and the person wears the hat and they'll have like a monologue or soliloquy. And then it cuts out and then it'll be just the spotlight will be all right on the next person and it's a different scene, but it's the same 2 people doing the same. Yeah.
All right. So the reason we asked you on was to talk a little bit about adapting RPGs for solo play, because that is something that you don't really see a whole lot.
Right.
So in your opinion, what is the hardest aspect of the game to prepare whenever you're doing solo play versus play with a group?
Okay. So, and this is connected to being a podcaster. So maybe I should answer this in 2 different ways. As a podcaster, probably my biggest challenge is that unlike in a game where you would maybe have like a lot of attrition encounters, you kind of wear down the party slowly over time because you're there for hours playing. But in the podcast, I don't feel like I can do that and still be interesting. And so almost every combat, and I guess it mostly comes down to combat, or every difficult situation, dangerous situation, has to be probably lethal, like at least have the chance of lethality or a good chance of lethality. So if there's going to be a fight, it's going to matter. It's not going to be like you enter a guard room, there's 3 goblins here, and then boom, 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 they chop them up. You lost 2 hit points, you lost 1 hit point, no problem, we're okay. And then we go on. It's got to be like a like momentous occasion every time. And so there has to be like real risk. And because I don't fudge any dice, that means that every time that I set up a combat, I really might lose 1 or more of my PCs, which is just as heartbreaking as if they were my characters at a table. Like I don't want to lose them. And I'm actually nervous about the encounter that I set up. That's weird, right? But that I really do feel like, and the longer they live, and they've been really lucky so far, some of them, not all of them, the longer they live, actually, the more attached I get, as you do, and the more I'm worried that they're going to die. And that could happen at any time. So that's, and also because it's a podcast where I have an audience that's listening for certain elements, I feel like there's got to be a combat every 3 episodes. Like I can't go too long with just description and exploration and role play. there's got to be combat. I try and keep like the 3 pillars in mind and keep it balanced. And so that means like every third episode, there's a decent chance that I'm going to lose one of my PCs. And so that's probably like the biggest challenge as a solo player and podcaster. If I was not podcasting, I guess that problem would go away because I could make much lower stakes encounters. And I guess I would. And in that case, maybe the problem then is the conflict of interest between what the players would know and what the DM would know. The weird thing is that is not a huge problem. That's what I expected to be the big problem when I started doing this. And in fact, if you'd asked me before I started, I probably would have just said, yeah, it's impossible. You just could never reconcile that issue. But then actually doing it, yeah, you can. It's rarely comes up that there is, truly a problem. Occasionally I'll have characters that are kind of like in a labyrinthine maze and they would have no idea which way to go. None. In that case, maybe I'll flip a coin and say heads, they go correctly towards their goal, and tails, they go away from their goal. But I don't use like a GM emulator. Those are great tools. I wasn't even aware they existed when I started, but things like Mythic. I don't know, have you ever heard of Mythic?
No, I've not heard of a GM emulator at all. What's this?
Let me talk about this stuff because even though I don't use it, it is fascinating. Do you want to do like a little experiment right now?
Sure.
On air?
Sure, yeah.
Because I have Mythic right here, just because I've been messing around with it because I love this idea. Let me explain it in a nutshell. So Mythic is basically a pen and paper AI for a GM. So you can play solo, or you can even play with a group of players with no GM, just using a couple of tables. And so what would happen is let's cook up a scene right now with the 3 of us.
Okay.
Give me a character class.
Cleric.
Okay. James, a cleric walks into. Give me a place.
Let's go with a shop.
Okay. Cleric walks into a shop and they're going to buy a new set of armor, right? Okay. So we're going to say they're in a city. Okay, they're in a city. They walk into a shop. They're going to buy a new set of armor. And this is kind of set up as a scene in a movie. That's how the Mythic GM emulator works. They're all like scenes. I think Dungeon World does stuff like that as well. And let's say that they talk to the shopkeep, and now you want to have a story element happen. You don't want it to just be a shopping trip where they're like, okay, I'll take this, subtract the money, and blah, blah, blah. You want to make it a story element.
Okay.
And so there's a set of tables in the Mythic book here, and you roll on these tables with a D100. I have one here, so I'm going to do it right now. All right. So whenever I come to a question where I don't know what's going to happen, I like, something's going to happen with this shopkeep, but I don't know what it is. So I got my D100. I'm going to roll on the table. I've got a 62, and I look on the table, and it says the word inspect. And then I roll one more time on a different table, and it says the word a burden. Okay, so I have these cues, inspect a burden. And now, myself alone or with the other players at the table, we have to make that make sense. And that's where the story goes. Whatever makes logical sense with inspect a burden. Maybe my cleric is carrying a big bag of gold, and the shopkeeper now looks at it, and I decide like the thing that makes the most sense is the shopkeeper's going to try and bamboozle me out of my money by selling me some kind of magic weapon or armor, but it's a fake or something like that. And so that's how these emulators work. And the cool thing about them is that I maybe would never have thought that the shopkeeper is going to try and con my character, but now I have this idea, and it's way like right field of where I thought this would go. And so the story actually gives you all of the surprises that a real human DM could give you, maybe even more surprising, because the tables are so random, and sometimes you have to make sense of some really weird stuff, and it can just lead. It could be more creative than you are,
That's
basically.
really awesome. I
Yeah.
absolutely love that. I kind of
There's a couple of shows out there. Sorry, there's a couple of shows out there. Let me plug some really quality content, guys. On YouTube, there's Trevor Duvall, who does Me, Myself, and Die, and Trevor Duvall sets the bar. He's good. Not only is he like a great DM, great storyteller, but he also is like a great videographer. And so he's got multiple camera setups. It's slick. It's beautiful. Check out Me, Myself, and Die. If nothing else, check out that.
I vaguely remember. I think he was on Dragon Talk like a year or so ago. I vaguely remember an interview with him talking about his show.
Yeah. I reached out to him to do a voice, actually, and he graciously did, which I wasn't sure if he would, because he's also a professional voice actor, and I was kind of asking him to volunteer what he does for a professional.
Right.
Yeah. So I think I kind of approached him like, you can totally tell me to jump off a cliff, but I'm a big fan and I would love to have you on the show. And he said yes. And boy, he was so good. It makes the rest of my podcast sound bad.
That's awesome. I wonder, like, if you really wanted that voice. I know they have like, what is it, like Cameo or whatever, where they have voice actors.
Yes.
You go. That would almost be worth the cost of admission. I think to have.
I wonder,
to have someone voice act for like a campaign, just for like a 1 or 2 like thing. But even with your emulator, I was like, that like gives me a great idea. Something kind of like Who's Line It Is Anyway, or like an improv show, and just base it around, even with people at the table.
Yes.
And just have it go that way. So, they roll random, kind of pick a class, pick a thing, pick a scenario, and then just play it out.
Absolutely, yeah.
Again, I am a huge fan of tabletop games, D&D, just games in general, and education. If you were like in a theater group or something like that, or working on interpersonal skills, something like this just lends itself to something that's very imaginative and very fun.
100%. Actually, I don't know if you know the game The Quiet Year.
I have not. No.
Another really fun one. And it's like a map-making game. There's no characters or anything. You're basically creating a 1-year chronology of events for a settlement. And actually, I've started making it a tradition to play that with my senior students on the last day of school. And actually, every time I've done it, it's been a real hit. But before that, I never used RPGs in school. I like to keep my work and my gaming life very, very separate. I don't even use my last name in the podcast just because I don't really want any of my students to Google me and find Manticore.
I'm trying to remember who the author of The Quiet Year is. It's Avery.
That sounds right. I have it right over there, but
I'm gonna have to look this up after.
I can't remember.
This podcast.
World Build with Us had them on for an interview a while back, and that's where I got familiar with their work.
They're another great group. Go check them out too. World Build with Us. I mean, always good group.
We've done a collab with them. We're hopefully going to do another one eventually, whenever our schedules align again.
When the stars align, and the Elder Gods awaken.
when the sun rises in the west.
Yes. So going through with another question, if someone was going to try to do a solo, kind of run their own solo campaign, do you think this is something good for newer players to kind of try and learn game rules, or is this something you would say is better for advanced players?
I can't speak from experience on this because I never tried it when I was a kid, and so I've got a bunch of years of experience doing this. But my gut says that it would be harder, not impossible at all. But basically, you have to know one set of rules. You're going to play 5e, you're going to play Basic, you're going to play Savage Worlds. You could use it for literally any RPG. You could use an emulator like Mythic. Or Iron Sworn, or any of the other ones that have kind of come up in the wake of Mythic. But I think you have to know the one system well, and then you have to know this second system of how to do the DM emulator. And there's a little learning curve there. It's not bad at all. There's like 5 things to know, but now you're layering them. So I think that it would work better for somebody who already knew a system, any system, but a system like very well.
Okay. So this is not something to cut your teeth on then.
Like I wouldn't try it for myself with 5e because I think I would spend 90% of the time looking stuff up and 10% of the time playing.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
Okay. Going back to the podcast real quick. There is one of your characters that has a voice that isn't you that I don't know that I've ever heard a credit for who is voicing them.
Oh, yes, that's true. That's true.
So who's the voice of Eredine?
That's my wife.
Okay.
Actually. Yeah, so when I started the show, I kind of, I very quickly realized that I did not have enough voices in me. Like I think I've got like 4. And I needed more, and especially like the female characters. I was already a little self-conscious voicing the character Umura, and then I was like, I definitely don't have 2 female voices in me. I don't even have the one, really. And so I kind of just begged her to do it, and she graciously agreed. And at some point, that character lost their voice, but that actually, it wasn't like one day she said, "Listen, I'm done with it." The story really did go there.
Yeah.
So I just ran with that idea when I saw it going there. It's a convenience that I don't have to like go and run and get my wife and bring her to the microphone like every time I'm recording, which is like every other day. And so that it was convenient, but I didn't engineer it to happen that way. And also it kind of made that character even cooler.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if that story and stuff, absolutely.
Yeah, because now she gets to have a little bit of a rasp in there.
Now she sounds like Batman.
Yeah.
But Batman voice is always great.
Yeah.
But the Christian Bale Batman voice, I mean, we don't want like the George Clooney. It wasn't my best Batman. Just throwing that out there.
I haven't seen the new Batman.
I haven't yet either.
Can Pattinson pull off that? I'm Batman. Can he do that?
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. He's got to shake that whole Twilight thing first, though. I don't know if that's going to happen.
All of my friends who have seen it say that it is really good.
I've heard it's good as well. Yeah.
But I did also see the meme that Robert Pattinson is the worst vampire because it took him 14 years to turn into a bat.
Yes.
That's clever. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, actually, he's a pretty good actor. I kind of slept on him, but have you seen The Lighthouse? That's like some serious acting. And I'm sure not a big payday. It's like almost an art film.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think he suffered from a poor choice of role.
He got typecast, right?
Yeah. And typecasting is a difficult thing. I mean,
brooding pretty boy, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure he did not mind all the checks that were written.
No. If he ever wants to give that up, I'll take it.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be brooding pretty boy if I could get that kind of. I mean, sure, typecast me all you want, go for it.
I'll do it for 10%.
Yeah. So, with Tales of the Manticore, do you have anything like big that you're trying to hatch or you're working up? Do you have anything that you're like you're kind of chomping at the bit to get to, or
yes,
is it all just kind of at the moment? So you definitely have plans.
For the longest time, it was very much of the moment, and I'm sure you guys will appreciate that as a podcaster, you're kind of living in two points of time.
Right.
There's the point of time where I'm playing the game and writing the script concurrently. And that's kind of how it happens. I'll sit down at the keyboard and I'll start typing what a DM would say maybe to the characters and have them respond, keep on typing, making a script. And then when I need dice, they come out, I roll them, I record the results on the screen and keep on going. But the release date is actually like 8 episodes behind that. Right. So I'm, or the other way of looking at it is I'm always like 8 episodes ahead of the release. And so
that must be
actually
nice.
Right now, it's nice, but I try and balance it so that I'm not so far ahead that I lose touch with what's actually being released in kind of real time right. to the public. Because if I get too far ahead, then I'm comfortable with my buffer and I don't have to worry about deadlines. But I can kind of forget what's going on. And I might slip up, I might spoil something, and I don't want to do that. But right now, on my other computer over here, I've actually got the script for the finale. So yeah, I'm actually like working on the last episode for season 1, and my brain I can't stop getting new ideas for season 2. Actually, I want to stop getting ideas for season 2 because I don't want any kind of railroad. I want it to be like random and have a chaos element to it, and have those moments where you just come up with something like we did with Inspector Burden. I want to have those moments as I play.
Yeah.
And not just be like, oh, wow, I've got a list of 20 cool things, and I'm going to get to 1, and then I'm going to get to 2, and then I'm going to get to 3, because then I'm just telling a story, and I really want to maintain that balance of story / game.
Right. Yeah, no, I definitely think those moments are what really make the game and make the game memorable.
Yeah, yeah. And they're what makes it a game other than just dice rolling, which admittedly is a big part. But that sort of thinking on the fly some of the time, I think you need that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it feels too canned.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that.
Now, speaking of canned, is there a particular monster that you want to bring on the table for your party, or maybe you're too scared to?
So many. So I've decided, I guess, fairly early in the story, once the story grew legs and became, crawled out of the sea and started walking on land. Once the story had evolved to a certain level, I was like, I really want it to be a dragon. I was trying to plug into a certain sense of nostalgia, and I thought it's D&D. I want to have some dungeons, and I want to have some dragons, and I want it to feel classic. Yeah, I wanted to feel like classic, even if it felt like tropes. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Like I'm totally fine with that. Actually, I don't have to like reinvent the wheel. So I thought last battle is going to be like a huge ancient red dragon. It's my dream.
Okay.
For season 2, though, I want to do something else that's kind of classic. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't want to decide too early, but there are many, many, many monsters that I would love to use. A beholder.
Yeah.
It's something I would love to use. I have to make it make sense.
Right.
Like there are no times in my story where it's like you walk into a room, there's an Odiug in it. Why is there an Odiug in it? Just because there is. Like that never happens. Everything
because D&D and you throw dice.
in a game, 100% do it. But for the show, like everything has to be there for a reason.
Right.
I don't want it to feel like random, which is why like dungeon crawl can't really happen, because dungeon crawls are just kind of like, and now this, right? And now this different thing that doesn't connect to anything else.
Remember, did you watch the first season of Lost forever years ago?
Yeah, I did.
So they're in the middle of the jungle, and they have that one episode where just out of nowhere, hey, look, a polar bear.
A polar bear.
Yeah. What the fuck?
Yeah.
And then we shoot it.
Yeah.
All that would be cool if they could make it make sense. Like,
right.
I don't know. I'm sure if you felt this way, but watching Lost, the more they threw in this weird random stuff, the more I was thinking, I cannot wait to see how they're going to cleverly tie this up. But then like a few seasons in, and you start to get this sinking feeling like they do not have an end game in mind.
No.
This isn't going somewhere clever. This is just a dog's breakfast of randomness for the sake of randomness.
Right.
And then of course at the end, everybody was kind of like let down.
Yeah.
I think.
No, like the first season was great. I loved the second season where they start throwing the Easter eggs and everything, and I was like, "This is going to be amazing." And then the third season hit, and I was just like, "And I'm done."
Yeah.
I made the mistake of thinking that, like other shows, you could skip ahead.
Oh no!
So I watched season 1. I got like halfway through season 2. I was borrowing the DVDs from the residence hall director when I was in college, and I didn't get to finish season 2. But at that particular time, season 4 had just wrapped, and next semester I'm down in the lobby, and they've got like the second episode of season 5 on, and I sit down and I'm like, I mean, I can do this. No. It's like, I don't know who any of these people are.
Right.
They're in a shanty town for some reason. Where did the shantytown come from? It's like,
Yeah. Now I will say with Lost, they had two really big issues. Is one, they had some really strict rules with their actors, which is really good. So if their actors got in trouble, they'd boot them from the show, which
Oh, okay.
not a terrible idea. So there was a couple that got caught drunk driving and stuff like that, and they're like,
Huh.
"Yeah, we're killing off your characters because we don't want you attached to the show." That's fine. And then I think you had one of the two really big writer strikes that happened in the middle of that too.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I
there
do
was a
remember that.
lot of shows. Battlestar Galactica was another one
Mhm.
where it was going great one direction. You had the writer strike, and it picked back up, and it went somewhere completely different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really feel like if you're telling a story, like a movie or a TV show, it does have to make sense
Right.
in the end.
And same with the podcast. I mean, it kind of tying it back in, you need to have that thread.
Yeah, but it also has to have an element of randomness because that's the part that makes it a game. So I knew that I wanted my big bad to be a dragon, but I didn't know how they were going to get there, or there's no railroad.
Right.
And I do also have to say that Nerenuminax is a wonderful dragon name.
Oh, thank
Yes.
you. I just tried to make it as oldie schooly as humanly possible, and somehow that popped into my mind, and I was like, "That's it. It's got an X in it.
Yeah,
That works."
Yeah.
That's one of the rare cases where it's not an anagram of like somebody I met on Twitter who sent me a piece of art, and I was like, "Oh my god, thank you! I'm putting you in the show."
Yeah, I have a
Which
bronze.
is a great name to make characters too.
Yeah, I have a bronze dragon in my home game, and his name is Arl Dormu.
Oh, that's quite good too.
I went
let me
after
just write that down.
Yeah. I went after the World of Warcraft naming conventions with Dormu as the end for bronze dragons. So
Nice.
all right, I think I am done with questions. James, do you have any more questions?
I don't think I have any more either. So
All right. Well, then, the one thing that we really like to do when we have our guests on is to roll some dice on our random table for monster mashup and make a monster on the fly.
Oh boy.
but not with Jeff Goldblum, because that's a completely different kind of monster fly.
That's a monster that is a fly.
Because life finds a way.
Indeed, it does. Indeed, it does. So, if you have some dice,
Mm-hmm. Well, that was a whole Goldblum adventure we just took there, right?
Yeah.
Right.
From The Fly to Jurassic Park. Probably some other stuff hidden in there.
Well, I mean,
I
we
do
get
have
the
dice.
collector from Avengers.
Right. All right, which
All right.
die am I grabbing?
So, for starters, let's get a D4
D4.
for our mode of locomotion.
Okay, it's the only one I didn't pull out. I was like, I'm sure they're not going to ask for a D4.
We're going to ask for all of them.
Yeah.
All right, D4. Got it.
All right.
Okay. Mode of locomotion. I've got helicopter. No, I've got a 3.
A 3, it burrows.
Hey, Ian.
Okay.
Hey, hey, James.
Yes.
Like Edgar Rice.
So I've been wanting for a while to make a botfly larva of some sort, and he keeps telling me we can't. But I mean, if it burrows, parasitic creatures are perfect. I'm just saying, if it's small, parasitic creatures are
Well,
perfect.
Okay, you went right for the skin. I was thinking Earth, but okay, skin works.
We are going to figure this out with the dice, James.
Yes.
Right. Boy, I
If
thought I was
the
dark.
dice say so, I cannot contradict the dice. Last
go.
time they were gargantuan. That's why we couldn't have botflies. All right. Next up is a D6 roll for what
Okay.
does it eat?
I got a 4.
For fruits/vegetables.
Okay.
Okay.
So we're seeing like Bugs Bunny.
Less fearsome at this point.
We've got to go for our Bugs Bunny thing going.
Right.
Or, I mean,
What's up, Doc?
it could be like mealworms. It could be
Yeah.
something that burrows into fruit.
Yeah.
This will inform a lot. A D8 roll for size.
Mm-hmm. 8.
It's colossal.
Oh my.
Colossal. Okay.
I have an idea. It's a scary idea. It's a terrible idea. I have an idea.
Okay.
The world cicada.
The world cicada. Okay.
It's the world cicada.
I mean, okay.
Um, yeah.
Are there more rolls to come?
Oh yes, there are plenty more
We've got
rolls to
several.
go.
Yes.
Okay.
I just got thrown off by world cicada. All right. Next is another D8 roll for social organization.
A 4.
4 family, so matriarch plus patriarch and offspring.
Wow, colossal family.
I mean, they'd probably branch off as they get older. Yeah. So there's definitely going to be some life stages involved, I'd imagine.
My brain's going to Wales.
Yeah, whales would be
Okay.
great.
Yeah,
I like it.
But burrowing.
Oh yeah. Well, burrowing through the water is another way of saying to swim.
Yeah, no, well, I like it. I mean, we denoted that swimming doesn't necessarily have to be.
Swimming does not necessarily have to be through water, so burrowing doesn't necessarily have to be through solids, yeah?
Or what if it was something like, like a giant, maybe it burrows and swims. I mean, it could be something in a water plane or something, or even just a deep ocean. So it has the ability to, like a flounder. A flounder can kind of burrow and then surface and come up.
Or it could be something like, I mean, this doesn't fit very well with the diet, but like an ice burrowing creature.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or
you could easily make like an ice plant or an ice tundra, though. I mean, it's not like we're not running a homebrew podcast.
Right, but these sort of terrains don't lend themselves. You know what? Let's just roll a D10 because that's the next thing we're going to be talking about.
I was going to say plankton works perfect.
Native environment.
Yeah. Let's settle this out.
It's a 10.
It's a 10. Underground.
Okay. That's still. I mean, that can still be in a liquid environment. Again, it could be underground ocean. It could be underground mountain. It could be between the two. It could be an aquifer.
It could be lava.
Yeah.
So now I'm thinking purple worm. Does that work with all the... I don't know if they're particularly family-oriented creatures, but
I mean it kind of works with the rest. But no.
Something along those lines, yeah.
I'm liking the feel so far.
But I want to get a little bit away from the actual purple worm,
right?
Just so we have something a little bit different,
right?
Yes,
Well, let's keep rolling and see.
Let's keep rolling and see what else we got.
Yeah.
Okay. Next up is going to be a D12 roll for method of defense.
Cool. This idea of like trying to make sense of these random prompts is exactly how the DM emulator works. By the way, we're basically doing that. A 7.
A 7. Fleeing.
Huh.
Okay. So it is not terribly aggressive. I like it.
I'm just wanting to know what in the world does this colossal worm have to flee from?
Right. Well, it's a vegetable eater, so
maybe it's hypersensitive.
Maybe it's not a predator.
Yeah, definitely not predatory, but maybe it's hypersensitive. Maybe it's like sound, or maybe it's got a lot of nerve endings, so it's very reactive to touch. So if you attack it, it's going to want to back. Yeah.
I can see that, especially if we're going off of a purple worm sort of vibe, because they do have tremor sense, so they perceive their environment through the vibrations in the ground.
Yeah,
I think I might be getting an idea here, and it's very far from purple worm.
Okay.
Should I share it now, or should we keep rolling?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
So this is half baked, but I'm thinking that the monster is going to be some kind of colony or network of fungus or mushrooms with like big network of underground. But probably not like bipedal or anything like that. It might slowly move around.
Okay.
But I don't see it as like an anthropomorphized mushroom so much as like a huge field of fungus that could move kind of very, very slowly underground.
I like it.
Eating nutrients or plant life or whatever. And that would be like a non-predator and it might be fleeing very slowly, I suppose. But I could see it being just like this enormous network that works with the family thing in a kind of weird way too.
It does. I like this too. So you have the giant, like the main grove tree in Archdruid's Grove. We now have the circle of the mushroom.
Circle of spores,
Circle of spores. So maybe this is like their home myconid or their home fungi, and they say the largest living organisms. In fact, it is a large network of the mushrooms and
the circle of spores druid grove is actually a circle of giant toadstools.
So these would just be the fruiting body of this entity.
And you cannot
I've
kill
heard
it.
them described as like a single entity, like they're individual plants, but they're a hive mind.
Yeah, I'm liking this.
And you cannot kill it in a way that matters.
This is true. I love that post. I love that post.
Yeah. All right. So,
that's cool. I like maybe the idea of fleeing is that if one piece is killed, it just gets ejected from the rest of the group.
Okay.
That would be an interpretation of fleeing.
Yeah. It just severs that connection. Part of it retracts, and it kind of just leaves an island.
Or it could be something akin to like puffball mushrooms.
Okay.
Where as a response, like the entire cap just punk and just jettisons.
Yeah, I love that. Okay.
And that's also how they spread. Is something comes in and goes to nibble on this mushroom cap, and it just that automatic response, kind of like was it snapdragons, the plants where you touch them and the seed pods pop and the seeds go everywhere, that sort of thing.
Right. Yeah, no, I like that. That's a great idea.
In fleeing, it's the fruiting body escapes from the parent.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I like that.
I like where this is going. I really do.
Yeah.
All right. Next is a D20 roll because we're going into quirks.
Okay, this is going to torpedo the whole idea, isn't it?
It might.
I have got a 2.
A 2?
Yeah, that's how I roll on D20s, folks.
That's all right.
2.
Mimic is able to appear as another creature common in the environment.
No, that's perfect.
Oh, that is perfect.
That is absolutely perfect.
It could appear as some kind of like ooze or slime, or it could appear as cavern wall.
Small trees, other plants.
Shambling mound, yeah.
Even like rocks or something.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or it could be like have hallucinogenic properties, so it doesn't actually change shape, but you perceive something else.
So like you eat it and you like, it's like it casts a dazzling spray cantrip, or
that would be a form of like prismatic spray. Yeah, that'd be like a form of camouflage if you ate it, or if there were puff spores or whatever, and suddenly you see something completely different, not it.
I can definitely see that as being an inhalation effect of the spores, and just how it would just have this aura within the area where it persists, where you walk in, and if you are not, say, immune to poison, you breathe in these spores and it makes you hallucinate and see the terrain as being slightly different. It instead of this giant mushroom in the center of this ring of toadstools, it presents as just a tree in a druid's grove.
Yeah. I love that. I think as we write this up, it should have, the prismatic spray as a at-will cantrip, and it can be from the spores or whatever. But no.
It makes sense that this thing would have a defense from, animals that would try and eat it, right?
Yeah.
All this makes sense. Yeah. Are you really going to write this up? I love it.
Yeah. We do with all of them.
I can't wait.
And now it's time to make it weird.
Now it's time to make it weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's buckle up.
So now I need a D100 roll.
22.
22. This also works. Any severed / discarded body parts can regenerate into a clone of the creature.
Perfect.
That definitely works.
This is beautiful.
There's your fruiting cap right there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Did you guys got to publish this system? Is this your system?
This is me modifying a table that I found on a blog spot a while ago. It's a random bug generator. Was the original.
Awesome.
And I modified it. I modified it a little bit.
This.
I modified it a little bit to work a little better with D&D monsters.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Bring hat. Excuse me.
All right, James. Because we do 2, do you want to do the second D100 roll, or do you want me to?
I can. I haven't done one in a while. Let me pop this thing up here. Where's my dice roll? There we go. I'm seeing a 15.
15. Bounces instead of taking fall damage.
Huh.
That kind of works with the fruiting body, depending on how high it ejects.
Yeah.
So it's going to bounce and roll.
Boy, that one has thrown me for a loop. Bounces.
No, I like that because, again, it depends on how heavy or how hard that ejects as it flees.
Yeah. And
so, if it's on a mountainside or something like that, instead of crushing that fruiting body, it would be able to hit and bounce and roll.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so maybe it can grow through caverns and gorges and whatnot.
Are there like some like a tumbleweed goes into a ball shape so that it can roll around it and sort of move? Maybe that's what happens with the cap, is that it kind of goes into maybe it's ball shaped to begin with.
Yeah.
And so it rolls or bounces instead of splats.
Okay.
Oh.
Well, I was thinking, you've got that general shape of a mushroom cap anyway. Mm-hmm. And honestly, it kind of looks like a lander cap from either like the Soyuz or the old Mercury. So, I mean, that would hit and they're rounded. So it would tumble and roll fairly well.
I'm almost seeing this as it's normally a fairly flat cap, and whenever it triggers, it snaps.
Okay.
It snaps shut into a ball.
Okay.
And so and then it jettisons off. It gets yeeted into the void. And then whenever
this makes sense because now the predator is going to go chase the food and hopefully leave the main body alone.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense.
Or it's just going to spook and run away.
Or it's going to get a face full of prismatic spray in the process and get completely disorientated. Yeah, no, that is a beautiful defense system. I love it.
And then after it's stopped, after a while, everything relaxes and then it opens back up, and that's what lets the spores actually emerge and the fruit
and reroot.
And actually respawn.
I like it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, this has been a wonderful, crazy thing. That was a great idea, John.
Well, thanks. I think I have a name. Are we going to?
Yeah.
Are we going to
if
name?
You've got a name, go for it. Yeah, absolutely. We do name these too.
Yeah, let me recap first.
Okay.
So our recap is that it burrows. It feeds on fruits and vegetables, or so vegetation, I guess, in this case.
Yeah.
It is colossal in size. Its social organization is family, so parents plus offspring. Its natural environment is underground. Its defense mechanism is to flee. It is a natural mimic, and it mimics other creatures or terrain features common in the environment. Its severed body parts will form clones of the original if cut off, and it bounces instead of taking fall damage. So, John, what crazy name have you got for this thing?
You can veto this.
We rarely do.
Now I'm less confident, but I like your idea of the prismatic spray, so I thought we could call it prismaticillin.
Dude, I like it. I really, really like that.
Yeah. I think we got it in one.
Well done.
Nice.
Well done.
Yeah. Well, that was fun.
That was fun.
Yeah.
That's always our favorite.
Very cool.
Always our favorite part of the episode is whenever we get to roll on the table.
And it wasn't
I'm sure you usually get something deadly, right? Don't you normally get something like nightmarish and deadly?
We've had a couple nightmares. They're not all nightmares. They're not all deadly. We've had some that were like the siren was kind of cool. The siren wound up being kind of like a almost cyberpunky, where it was like a floating advertisement that became self-aware. And it swam, so we said it swam through EM fields.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
that was a really
It
fun one.
followed high voltage power lines.
Yeah.
Right. Very good. I love it.
Well, we also had the groupie,
Yeah.
which was basically a giant living rubber ducky.
Yeah.
Not what I thought you were going to say. Okay.
Basically, it shows up at Mardi Gras, and everybody thinks that it's just another float, and so it just follows everybody.
Yeah. That one was a lot of fun.
That one was a lot of fun. All right.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So the other thing that we like to do with our guests is to have them give a shout out to someone else in the community, another podcaster, content creator, a musician, artist, etc. Who would you like to give a shout out to today?
Boy, how much time have you got? All right. Well, I already shouted out Trevor Duvall, so let me shout out someone who is maybe like not a podcaster and probably somebody who does something you guys wouldn't have featured on this show yet. I'm guessing this is a guy named Justin Feel who does a web comic called Keep on the Borderlands. You could just Google Keep on the Borderlands web comic, and his MO is really similar to mine. So he's doing a web comic using like old school D&D tropes, classic D&D, and just like my show, he makes all of the story decisions by rolling dice.
Oh, nice.
And so we're kind of brother and sister, and just recently Justin has been kind of just randomly sending me kick-ass artwork about Tale of the Manticore. I got to shout out a couple other guys too, Roland Diaz and Simon J. Williams. These three guys, they send me artwork that is like professional level, and it blows my mind that anybody would care about my show enough to draw art for it. And then, so, as a podcaster, of course we make a lot of money, right, guys?
Oh, yeah.
Right. But the real joy is when like you find that people are invested in your show to like just more than a casual degree. Like that is thrilling to me. And actually, if you can hang on just 1 second. Okay, here we go. So I got this in the mail recently, and it's a scene from my show.
Oh, that's awesome.
And somebody sent this to me from England, and of course I had to like frame it and put it up beside like in my studio here where I can like look up at it, and if I ever feel like, why am I making this and spending hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and all the effort? One look at that and question answered.
Yeah, no,
that's
totally.
that's
awesome.
why I'm doing it. That is unbelievable to me.
That is really awesome. And you were talking about what is it? Into the Borderlands?
Keep on the Borderlands.
Keep on the Borderlands. I need to look that up because, there's been a void since I stopped following Order of the Stick, kind of slowly kind of petered out.
Yeah.
So
his name is Justin Feel, Pfeil.
Okay, excellent.
I've seen a few issues of the comic floating around here and there. Mm-hmm. I've not gotten a chance to go and actually read it, but I do enjoy the art style that he uses in the few issues that I've seen. Yeah.
My insomnia hours are spoken for. Yay!
All right. Last thing, we want you to promote you.
Yes,
so
please.
Go ahead and tell us where we can find you, where we can find your podcast, anything else that you have that people might be interested in.
Thanks very much. So, I guess to give the shortest elevator pitch, Tale of the Manticore is a hybrid between an RPG solo game and an audio drama. It's got an old school classic D&D feel. It's also quite dark and grim, and there's no plot armor or second chances. There's no rerolls. There's no dice fudging, and so there's exultation in it, but there's also tragedy. There's horror, but I also try and balance that out with some beauty. You can get it wherever you get podcasts. Just look for Tale of the Manticore, not Tales, because that's the Pixar one from Onward, spin-off or something. Anyway, Tale of the Manticore, it's on every podcasting platform. And I guess if you are looking for an entry into solo gaming, I did put out a rules ultralight solo game onto DriveThruRPG called One Shot in the Dark. The idea being a game that you could learn in 5 minutes and really actually finish a game in an hour. So it's a one-shot that's actually a one-shot. Usually one-shots end up being a 2 or a 3 or a 4-shot, or, the middle is ripped out of them because, oh my goodness, we're running out of time.
Right.
So that one's called One Shot in the Dark, and it's like $1.50. So I almost put it up for free, but then I thought, you know what, maybe people will see it for free and think it's not good. So I decided to put it up for $1.50.
All right. Well, John, thank you so very much for joining us today for Undercommon Taste.
That was a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
I enjoyed so much.
Yeah. And thank you, everyone, for watching. If you have any comments, suggestions, or ideas, please send us an email, undercommontaste@gmail.com, or send us a direct message through our Twitter account at UCTHomebrew. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Twitch. Just search Undercommon Taste. You'll find us. We're on Patreon, patreon.com/Undercommon Taste. That's where all of our write-ups go. That's where our write-up for our Prismaticillin is going to be going up.
That's just an amazing name. Again, well done on that one. Beautifully done.
Thanks.
Most of our stuff is free. We do have some patron exclusive stuff. Our most recent patron exclusive is our guide to creating heirloom items in 5th edition. If you would like to help support the show financially, please come and consider becoming a patron. Finally, we are on Discord, and you can find a link to our Discord in the show notes.
If this is your first time hearing us, again, thank you for finding us. I hope you guys all enjoyed. You can find us wherever you find your podcasts. Again, we're on Apple, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google. Just search Undercommon Taste. We'll pop up. You've got our whole log there. Again, thank you. Always, please give us a rating and review. This helps increase our visibility, and it lets us know what you want to hear more of.
Thank you once more, John, for joining us. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Stay safe, and we'll see you next week.
Happy gaming.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Undercommon Taste. You can find links to all of our social media accounts, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, as well as our Patreon and Discord channel in the show notes. Our theme song is Massacre Anne, written and performed by Mary Crowell and used with permission. You can find more of her work at marycrowell.bandcamp.com or on Patreon at patreon.com/Dr. Mary C. Crowell. Our logo was illustrated by David Sutherland. You can find him on Instagram at willex_73 or on DeviantArt at deviantart.com/David Sutherland. Thanks again for listening. Stay safe. We'll see you again next week.